For almost a decade, if not longer. For days and weeks, if need be. Roger and Jack, thanks so much for having me on the show, and I hope you guys have a great evening. And of course, you can always find me talking on Truth Social.
Look,
Welcome. Go
ahead. I stepped on you.
It don't matter. Welcome everybody to RadPod and Chill, RadPod and Not So Chill. Hi-Fi, thank you for that very important opener. Watching all these countries try to get out of their the Russification that's happening, and watching our country have what our guest that we're going to talk about, Marcy Shore, calls a very muted response to what's actually happening in America is just incredible. We're literally just quietly handing over our country to fascist enemies. And so I appreciate you opening with what people are actually doing in other countries to defend themselves. They want to be part of democracies. They don't just hand them over. Anyway, hi, you guys. I figured that we would dedicate a lot of time this hour to our guest from episode 119, Marcy Shore, who wrote a very important book called The Ukrainian Night. The book is just filled with so much poetry that as I report on it, I can't even figure out which headline to use because she's just so incredibly amazing. It's an intimate story of revolution. We learn about Ukraine in 2004 and 2014, and it all relates to what's happening in America, and many of the same players are involved. Jim, take over.
Yes, I was just going to say I was going to give Hi-Fi some props for pulling out Morphine. I love that band, and not many people know about the Morphine. They got the bass sax or whatever the fuck they call the big one.
He plays dually a baritone sax and an alto sax. The lead singer / bassist plays a 2-string slide bass, and they have a percussionist as well. Morphine.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah. And anyway, they're very unique and very wonderful, and so I wanted to say that. So that's about all the nice things I'll have to say today.
Yeah, right.
But except for Marcy, by the way, that I said it is very, very hard to get me to sit still and just stare at somebody for like an hour.
I know.
I was like, don't stop talking. Yeah, she was absolutely amazing, brilliant storyteller, one of the best historians, I know, and she's fun to listen to because her vocabulary is wild, and so you have to be thinking, okay, shit, what does Hegelian mean again? God damn it.
Oh my God, I've been researching like every single minute of that interview, and she does it effortlessly. That's the thing about being an intellectual historian. It means that she has read a lot of books, and I find people who read a lot of books really, really great to learn from, and
even better
very inspiring.
When they write a lot of books.
Yeah, true. Yes.
Anyway,
I want to hang out with Marcy and discuss. Well, I want
lost
to hang out
him.
with He's back. I want to hang out with Marcy and discuss whether or not one of philosophy's greatest mistakes was applying the individual concept of telos to society as a whole with their teleological predetermination shit. And yeah, anyway.
Yeah, she pulled out the teleological quite a few times, and so
But she was so incredibly down to earth.
No.
That's like
100%. And she's such a good storyteller that you can always figure out what she's talking about, no matter what. It's just I was one of my favorite ever.
I know. I have not prepared for an interview more and harder than preparing for her interview, because it was so, I just learned about her book from our previous guest, who wrote Russian Colonialism 101. He mentioned Marcy Shore's The Ukrainian Night. I'm like, oh man, I don't know about that. I got it. We had a mutual, thank you so much for that mutual connection to our dear friend Andrea connected us. And it was just like, oh my God, from the moment I literally found 10 hours to listen to the audiobook and read it at the same time. And the reason it took 10 hours is the audiobook was only 7 hours, but I kept on rewinding. I kept on taking notes. I haven't taken that many notes, probably since, whatever book I was reading yesterday, because I am a book nerd. But honestly, it was the poets, these Polish poets that she would pull out from who, that beautiful poet, the one about the end of the world, which I think we have a clip on tonight. And people in Eastern Europe have really gone through it and really been through it. At Betty Dangerous, my Substack, I just had Alex Alvarova do a guest op-ed where she's like, from a, Eastern European girl from the past. She wants us to know what it was like under Soviet rule and how we have just walked ourselves into this abyss where oligarchs rule and where corruption is normalized. And honestly, Jim, I heard you today on Tom Hartman's show. Very, great job. But when you talked about the abject failure of the Biden administration for not addressing the information war, I will say this over and over again. I don't think that MAGA knew that it was voting for an organized crime ring. I do not think they knew they were voting for billionaires to deliver them to austerity. I think part of the reason we're seeing a muted response right now is I think there's a growing awareness that something happened that's not right. They can see the headlines, even though they're in these false realities. They can still see the scary stuff. And I think that, reading Marcy's book or listening to her audiobook, I think will help people focus on next steps.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there are two. I don't think the Republicans are being very muted. I think the Democrats are being incredibly muted. Muted is the kindest possible word you could use for embarrassingly absent, negligent, feckless. Yeah. Where the fuck are they? Even if they were choosing not to take the kind of action that absolutely is warranted in this situation.
Yeah.
Absolutely warranted. All kinds of measures are warranted. At a minimum, they could just look us in the eye and tell us what the fuck's going on, tell us the truth about this situation, explain to us what happened, how it happened, how we can prepare for the regime that they left us with. But instead of just this, oh, bummer, see you later, I'm going to pardon some turkeys, I'm out, you know. And
Well, he pardoned his son.
yes, and he, listen, he should have.
Yeah.
Of course
Yeah.
he should.
Yeah.
Hunter Biden has been clean for 5 years. Hunter Biden made up with Parnas. Hunter Biden was a drug addict with problems who lied on a gun permit, which happens thousands of times every single day. 0 people, none, 0 get charged for it.
He was targeted by the Russian war machine.
Nobody gets targeted for it wasn't the Russian war machine, though. It was the goddamn Justice Department. That's
both.
The problem, right? Yeah, yes, but the Justice Department and the feckless Biden administration that left David Weiss, this MAGA lunatic, in there, and then left Merrick Garland to hire David Weiss to be the second Biden crime family special counsel when J6 got 1. So yes, I'm not at all happy at this point. In retrospect, having spent 4 years of my fucking life trying to warn about exactly what just happened, which is that a bunch of psychological warfare, a bunch of propaganda, a bunch of bad actors, and the goddamn Russians brainwashed us into suicide, because that was always the point. And we kept telling you fucking years. And
yeah, we did.
And Bob's your uncle. Here we are. Anyway, so we are here, and it's important to be realistic about where we are.
Yes.
And here is the realism that I want to I'll stop in a second. Hopium is a dangerous drug. Let me repeat. Hopium is a dangerous drug. Yeah. As much as we want to find some sort of grand master plan, Article 5, fucking, Article 14, all of those things should be done. They should. Then we should push and scream and yell as loud as we can for that kind of action to be taken. However, do not be fooled into believing that it's happening, because there is no sign of it.
No, none.
And I need people to understand this is not to be a doomer or negative or whatever. What I'm saying is that hope is not a plan. Hope is not a management strategy. It is sure as hell not a way to win a war.
Right. Do you see why I'm smiling? Because welcome to the neurotic catastrophizer hour of RadPod and Not So Chill. At one point, Jim asked Marcy, knowing what she knows about the revolution of dignity and what just happened in America, and how she's feeling. She basically just said, they called me like, what was her words? It was like a neurotic catastrophizer.
Neurotic catastrophist.
Okay. Yeah, neurotic catastrophe. And we'll hear a clip from that. But the bottom line is that we all wish that we were wrong. We all wish that, we could be celebrating and on the other side of this. I had hoped to go back to being a music writer. That was my first love, writing about music and culture and film and arts, and not all this political shit. But guess what? That's not the story. That's not how it turned out. And what Jim just said is so real. And I believe that all of the little hopium accounts with their, cute little cat avatars or dog avatars and no real names saying there's a secret plan. No, there's not. If there is, let's see it now. But honestly, we are sleepwalking ourselves off a terrible, terrible cliff. And what do we know from history? we know that it's much easier to retain and maintain your democracy and try to continue to upgrade it than it is to get it back once you've given it away. And we have a very, very muted response to our terrible catastrophe, which, by the way, some of the same people delivered us to this point. Paul Manafort is somebody that comes to mind. And read the Ukrainian Night. Don't just watch our clips. Read the book, get the audio version, and quickly learn some very important history.
You two are bringing me the fuck down. Jesus.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about some good news.
Oh,
because
right.
I think our audience deserves some good news. And well, I don't know if I call it good news, but it's news that backs our point that, excuse me, Mr. Biden, sir, we are under attack. There is electronic warfare of multiple kinds going on.
Yeah, right.
And here today we had the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. We released an interim report on Havana Syndrome that basically said, yeah, Russia is microwaving our agents or some crazy shit like that. I didn't quite, yeah. Anyway,
well, let's get that right, if we can, because they're not microwaving our agents. They're using.
Well, I don't understand the technology behind
electronic warfare.
It's electronic warfare, is what it is.
No, it's not. It's physical warfare. It is literally cooking the brains of our government employees and potentially others in private sector. Yeah. The problem is that, and this is really clear now, right, that the intelligence community, the entire intelligence community, is simply lying to us about what they know about this Havana Syndrome. It's not Havana Syndrome. They know exactly the technology that's being used. It's hypersonic directed energy. It's very real. The science is understood, and they've caught these people doing it. We know what this is. We've got hundreds of examples at this point. And our intelligence community keeps saying that it's unlikely that it has anything to do with a foreign intelligence service. In the meantime, 60 Minutes has whistleblowers, has, I'm sorry, but, if it goes on 60 Minutes, it's a pretty as conservative as it gets.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, they're cooking people's brains, and they have people on there like, they cooked my brain. Here's my fucking X-ray.
Yeah.
But our intelligence community will not admit to it. And here's the corollary that I think is very important about that. That's causing brain damage to American citizens, a foreign enemy, right? And our intelligence community is covering it up. Now, extend that to psychological warfare.
Yeah.
Extend that to people who have had their minds damaged, right? It's not even arguable. It's brain damage when you get brainwashed. It changes the literal circuitry of your brain. It excites your amygdala in your fear center. It distorts all kinds of things in your brain in order to put you in the situation where you're willing to make decisions that will kill you, right? Suicidal decisions. That's what they're hoaxing you into doing, right? And the way they do that is through psychological warfare. And our goddamn government knows it just as much as they know about this Havana Syndrome thing. And the only thing I can muster up is that they believe that releasing this information to the public will somehow incite a conflict with Russia that they're super scared of, or that the public will get all bent out of shape, or fucking something.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
But it is, I think, emblematic of the overall problem, not just with the Biden administration, but frankly with the goddamn government for a long time, which is that it's not being honest about very, very important things, and that needs to change.
It does, and it won't change with what's coming on January 20th. It'll only get worse. We will be all forced to live in this alternate reality where truth has no bearing anymore. Yes, High Fidelity. I got some stuff
I would
to
just
say.
like to point out that Jim is correct. These were physical attacks upon United States personnel. However, that is just another point in the case for the fact that doesn't matter if we're at war or not, Russia is already at war with us.
That's where I was going with this. So
I wish.
As you guys know, I read a lot of history books because I'm looking for solutions. I'm desperately looking for solutions, that Deus ex machina, the Hail Mary that we need to stop us going off this horrible, cliff with this horrible death cult. And in Undercover, about the reporter who went undercover in the U.S. Nazi movements and Christian supremacist movements in the late 30s and the early 40s. You know what they did to the people who were leading these movements? They deported them. They stripped them of citizenship. They put them in jail. They sent them packing. If they came back, they threw them back in jail. They kneecapped these movements and the leaders of these movements. And I thought about it. What was different? Well, one of the things that was different was we were at war. So maybe when we're at war, they somehow international rules apply. We apply our treason, traitor laws, whatever it is. But right now we know that we have foreign enemy agents trying to overthrow U.S. democracy, succeeding at this point. And back in the 40s, they deported them. They stripped them of their citizenship and they threw them in jail.
Can I give you an example of that?
Please.
In 1939, there was an infamous rally at Madison Square Garden right before, by the way, the 1940 election. And the Nazi that ran that rally, a guy named Fritz Kuhn.
Fritz Kuhn, yeah.
Was the leader of the German-American Bund.
Correct.
And he, after that, got wrapped up for all kinds of crimes against people.
Embezzlement.
Using the Nazi government as threats against them. And Mr. Kuhn was imprisoned, denaturalized, and de-fucking-ported from the United States of America,
right.
Which is what you are supposed to do with immigrants who come here, by the way, and this is important, immigrants who come to America under false pretenses in order to, I don't know, do things like brainwash America into committing suicide, which Fritz Kuhn tried to do and failed.
Yeah.
Sadly, to your point, Heidi.
He didn't have Twitter, though.
We went through the 1939 moment to include the Madison Square Garden rally with the Nazis and the oligarchs and everything else. And God bless America, we fucked up this time.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to, sadly, put quaint ideas like treason, quaint ideas like the rule of law, quaint ideas like law enforcement is automatically on your side.
Yeah.
Things like the government isn't trying to kill you. There are lots and lots of these assumptions that we have made over many decades that are about to go completely away. And we just have to be super honest about that. Because yes, Elon Musk has $1/3 of $1 trillion of our money, $1,000 for every single man, woman, and child in America. And it's all ill-gotten. And no one's going to do jack shit about it. And that is the entire problem.
Thank you. High Fidelity, do you want to chime in on that? Because I think it's very important what you said a couple of days ago when you were prepping me before I went on Tom's show, when you reminded me where the money came from for Musk to buy Twitter. And shouldn't that be, a violation of campaign laws when you're getting money from the Saudis and the Russians? Expand on that.
Twitter is a campaign contribution to Donald Trump from Elon Musk, utilizing money from Russia and Saudi Arabia, like adversarial foreign nations,
to benefit Russia and Saudi Arabia, right?
Yeah. Why is this difficult? Like, I don't understand why we're allowing this to occur. It's mind blowing to me, and I look around, and I mean, if you've been following the show, if you've been watching us for a while, you can go back to our episode 1 where we talk about we talk about crypto, and we talk about money laundering, and we talk about Russia with Dave Troy, and that was 2021. And look what's happening now. We've got the National Crime Agency in the UK. Oh, look, a multi-billion-dollar Russian money laundering network with links to drugs, ransomware, and espionage.
Well,
crypto.
You're burying the lead, though, which is that this fucking fraud of a Ponzi scheme crossed $100,000.
Yeah.
For it's a little bit of a simplification, but not much. Bitcoin is not a currency. There's no value. It's a prime number that gets dug up by a shitload of computation. There are 21 million of these things, and the more you get to the end of them, the more impossible, like mathematically, astronomically impossible it gets. But then the higher the value gets, so people want to spend millions and billions of dollars mining these fucking things. Mining, meaning having unnecessary random computing power being shot at this problem that doesn't actually exist in the real world, but causes actual problems because it uses, 3 years ago, it was like the entire power output of Argentina.
Right.
And probably up to, all of South America by now. I don't fucking know. Right. But it's a environmental catastrophe, a financial catastrophe, and one of the greatest thefts and transfers of wealth in recorded history. And let me finish my rant on Doge. I just ranted my ass off about Doge.
We expect no less.
Doge.
It is what I call it. Delusional oligarchs get everything.
Yeah. Right.
Literally, this fucking guy, Elon Musk, walks into Congress today, unelected, with $1/3 trillion, sorry, with his little billionaire Peter Thiel bot Vivek Ramaswamy next to him to LARP along. And they're sitting in there, and he's got his kid on his shoulders, and he's talking about cutting $2 trillion out of the budget.
Yeah.
The entire federal budget is $6.5 trillion. Now, you might think, I don't know, if you're a business or something like that, you cut it off and it's no big deal. It's not like that with the goddamn government, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not like, oh, we have a little bit of a hard time. It's like chopping that much off is like chopping 1/3 of a person off and expecting them to function like they used to, right? Literally, we won't have law enforcement and insurance and the entire New Deal, the whole safety net, the entire welfare infrastructure of the United States that does the bare minimum, by the way, bare
Right.
minimum
Right.
to keep people alive,
Right.
they want to take away, put in their pockets, and oh yeah, we're going to get you to Mars because that's what's really important here. It's all a fucking fraud. It's just the largest heist in U.S. history, and they're doing it in front of us.
Right.
To just show you, if you don't know, how utterly corrupt this is. DOGE is actually, so it's the Department of Government Efficiency, which is an Orwellian as fuck. But where does it come from? It comes from the Dogecoin, which is a worthless meme coin, a pump and dump that Elon Musk has been pushing for years and years so he can raise the price and sell, and a bunch of knuckleheads can get transfer their money from themselves to him. And that's all it is, and all it's ever been, a pump and dump, a fraud, openly. And that's what he named this project, to take your Social Security away. Your pension is going to get fried in a fire because Bitcoin is now $100 billion, right? So anyway, I just want to say the blindness of the American people, if any of this goes through, and they're trying. Elon Musk is like, if anyone opposes me, I will primary you.
Right.
Which, he's got that much money, is not a joke.
So thank you.
We've got a lot to get through here over the next.
Thank you, Jim. No, this is also freaking important. And when I say a muted response from MAGA too, because yes, not from the Republicans, but from those who voted for the guy they thought would, burn it all down and could tell them some good jokes. I think we need MAGA to get out from the dark fairy tale and realize what just happened, because we're going to need them as allies. And as Jim has said, for 4 years since I've known him, no one brainwashes themselves. And I have a few things I want to point out based on what you just said. Elon Musk is talking about giving $100 million to Nigel Farage. Okay, so the next, the front is the UK, it's the EU, it's Canada, and I am telling all my friends in the UK, and so many of you actually stay up late and watch this show. That is not funny or cute. He's serious about that. It's not illegal, because he can use his UK-based Twitter company to do that $100 million transfer to Nigel Farage's party. So what you have to do in the UK is pressure the Starmer administration to change the electoral laws to make that fucking illegal, because we didn't do that here. We let Cambridge Analytica do whatever it did. We let all these transnational mobsters, buy politicians and invest in, Kentucky and wherever else, like all throughout. The tentacles were so deep and the roots were so deep, and nobody ripped them out. So that is why we're here. So take it very, very seriously. The other thing, Jim, you mentioned the New Deal. That is what this is all about. I say that because every single Nazi that this reporter interviews in Undercover was all raging against FDR the way they rage against Biden, all about the New Deal. And I just want to read you this one portion. Bear with me. The reporter said the next ingredient required was a group of politically uninformed working men and women who are exposed to fanatic speakers. This is from 1938. The fanatic speakers he became friends with because he was working undercover, and they told him that they don't really believe what they're saying. They just need the mob. They need to form the mob. But here's how he described the mob. It starts with a few embittered, wealthy old ladies, a gang of thugs, a crew of slick propagandists. It dignifies itself by calling on the support of churchmen and duped public officials. In every level of society, it sets up organizations to spread the word of hate. It develops a potential weapon of destruction, mixed fear and hate, and blind rage. The fascists are not really attacking communism. They are attacking a self-created image, which includes anyone who is even mildly liberal.
Yeah, I mean, liberalism and communism are the same thing to fascists.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Whether they believe that or not depends on, how they, what the benefit that they're getting from it. If it's mostly money, it doesn't matter if they believe it or not. Right. But it's been this way for a long time. And it is not an accident, and I keep going back to this old stuff that matters, stuff like the John Birch Society, right?
Yeah.
Which is enormous anti-communist thing that still drives people like Mike Flynn and like Donald Trump. Fred Trump's father was friends with Robert Welch, who started this anti-communist cult, right? John Birch Society. And the important thing, about that is that Fred Koch was one of the 11 original members of the John Birch Society, was in the room when it was invented, and became one of the primary sort of proponents of it. And Bob's your uncle, the kids are still driven by that shit.
Yeah, that's right.
And people are still driven by this anti-communist Joseph McCarthy like bullshit that they is basically just a sort of cover story for fascism, for Nazism, for bigotry, right?
Yes,
it gives people a rationale for, trying to protect American values, meaning white guys almost 100% of the time.
Yeah, so none of this is new. The weapons delivery system, as Hi-Fi would say, may be different with social media, but it's all the same playbook. And we got taken. And America, if you're listening, you've got to pay attention to people like Yale professor Marcy Shore. We're going to start blasting out some clips right now, High Fidelity. Let's start with 1 and 2, unless you put that one together. Let's go.
Historians, as you might guess, have a kind of infinite regression problem, because at any given moment in time, where we are is conditioned by what came before that. So there's no such thing as starting with a tabula rasa. There's no such thing as a pure beginning point, because we're always already somewhere in circumstances and in conditions that have been created by from what happened before. And so I always have this tendency to in order to understand 2013, you have to understand 2004. In order to understand 2004, you have to understand 1991, and it just keeps going. So we can start anywhere you like. And another thing I would emphasize here, both for people of a younger generation who don't remember the Soviet Union, and even for those of us who do, is that it was the largest, most far-reaching, deepest penetrating, grandest scale social engineering experiment ever performed on mankind. We are still in some ways coming to terms with the sheer scale of the experiment and the sheer scale of the catastrophe. It was in many ways unprecedented. It was an attempt not just to remake a government and not even just to remake a society. It was an attempt to re-engineer human beings on a massive.
That's a really, really important point.
Re-engineering human beings. Oh yeah,
it is. And what's also important to understand is that the Soviet Union, in many ways, is what we're fighting.
Exactly.
Look, we had the Soviet Union, and the whole, the whole Eastern Bloc was basically, under this authoritarian communist dictatorship, and we can go through all the reasons and everything that happened in the 90s, and she does an amazing job of that. But Vladimir Putin has said that it was a great tragedy that the Soviet Union was dismantled. He said it's one of the greatest catastrophes of the 20th century, that the communist social engineering experiment that Marcy was just talking about went down. And so what he did was spent the 90s basically creating hatred and anger and rage about democracy.
Yeah.
It wasn't really democracy, and came back and basically sort of fused this very limited kind of agreement to work within the Western system with the Soviet Union, right? And then and all he's been doing ever since is reaching back out into all of these countries that they gave up to try and get them back, including Ukraine. And Ukraine is especially important because it's a military launch point for the entire rest of Europe.
Yeah. And what's so incredible
as well recently.
What I learned about 2014, among the many things I learned, was that they literally crowdsourced their freaking army. Like in 2014, they're just like, oh shit, we got to go. I mean, these are the bravest people, and I can't talk about it because I get emo, but bottom line is, one of the people she interviews in the book told her, growing up in the Soviet era Ukraine, it said, in Soviet schools in the Soviet Union, they lied to us. They told lies. Do you understand the whole history of Russia? It's all invented. There's not a word of truth. There's not a single word of truth. And that also matches what a reporter said when he was covering the war in 2014 in Ukraine. He said this is a reporter who'd been to multiple wars. He said he never covered a war that was based on nothing, based on fabrication, based on lies that were being told on Russian state TV. And that particularly hit home because you got Tucker fucking Carlson in Russia again, telling us lies, fabrications based on things that don't really fucking exist. And America, if you're listening, this is the time to stand up for your country, because you're not going to be able to after January 20th. Let's see another clip. Why was it so important that there was that moment where somebody says, likes don't count, like you've got to show up and you got to do this in person?
That was extraordinary. And it was one of those moments that reveals what historians like to call contingency. Because it was November 13th. And what happens is that Yanukovych, the association agreement has already been agreed on. There's a signing ceremony prepared in Vilnius. It's all seems to be a done deal. And then at the 11th hour, under pressure from Putin, Yanukovych suddenly says, I'm not going to sign. And at that point, there's a sense of despair. But I think the question you're asking is, what determines when that despair turns into action? And how contingent is that? And I think it's very possible that not much might have happened had it not been for the fact that this then 32-year-old Afghan Ukrainian journalist named Mustafa Naim post on Facebook, in Russian, by the way, a little message saying, hey, let's be serious. If you're really upset, come out to the Maidan, this big square in the center of Kiev, by midnight tonight. Likes do not count. And I was fascinated by that likes do not count, because it was so provocative, and it was a sentence that would have meant nothing before Facebook. It would have literally been meaningless. And now it's going to be a slogan for revolution.
Likes do not count. I don't know. I think I think we should probably spend New Year's Eve on Joe Biden's lawn in Washington, D.C., just to let him know what the fuck is up, that he is handing us over to Russia, because I don't get it. Our intelligence community is covering up physical attacks on American intelligence agents. We've seen, fires across Europe. We know Russia is preparing for war. Look what happened in South Korea, right? You think it's a coincidence that, oh shit, their president decided to go full fascist? No. This is a class war. It's global and it's ongoing. And our president has abandoned us.
And what did we learn
do now?
What did we learn from Keir Giles? Poland's crash rearmament. Russia just needs to see that there is serious activity, and then they'll look elsewhere. Russia's crash rearmament right now is deterring Russia. Finland has inoculated its citizens against information warfare. We are sitting ducks, and I'm tired of it, man. Jim, do you have anything to say, or can we see the next clip?
Hold on. Hey, Europe, if you're listening, build a bunch of like bullets and bombs and missiles and stuff and give them to Ukraine as quickly as possible, please.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that's my foreign interference. Europe, the entire thing, specifically France and the UK.
Well, but before we see the next clip, there's one thing I want to say. When you read the 277-page Russian dossier translated from Russia, military operation directly related to Vladimir Putin, what it shows is all these lies and all this unreality that we are being served all the time, and that the Russian people have been served for 25 years, and that Ukrainian gentleman was talking about in Marcy's book. All those lies, the people serving them to you don't believe it. They're very, very clear-headed about what they're doing to mess with people's minds. The people that are targeting America from foreign enemy states know exactly what they're doing, and we are allowing them to do that, and we've done nothing to protect people. And I just need to point that out. There are now brainwashed people doing it for the Russians here in America, but the people that are targeting our country know exactly what they're doing, know exactly what they're seeding.
There's a list out there of 600 people.
At some point.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I just wanted to say, look, this the Russians, and it's very important again that we look at the leader of this entire thing, comes from the KGB.
Yeah.
All they do, all they did, all the FSB does, all the GRU does is psychological warfare and active measures in America. So we need to just stop using euphemisms, any of that stuff, and somebody in the pro-democracy movement needs to get some courage. Let's be polite about it right now, and treat this as the war that it is, because the entire fear of and failure, in my view, of the intelligence community and the whole administration is based on the fear of confrontation, right? The fear of sticking up for yourself in the face of a goddamn bully. We got bullied. And what somebody in America is going to need to do is stand up and say, you know what? I hate bullies. Fuck you. Real, like, so let me give you a brief example. I just want to give a shout out to Olivia Troy.
Yes.
Who said very, very correctly on Joanne Reed's show that she knows Kash Patel, that she's worked with Kash Patel. And Kash Patel is a delusional liar. She said it very, very clearly and openly, absolutely correctly, because she's there. And also, Kash Patel is a delusional liar. That's all he is. And Kash Patel's lawyer, one Jesse Banal, who looks, if you don't know, shockingly like Alfred Newman.
Newman, yeah. What me worry? Yeah.
Shockingly.
Yeah.
Anyway, sent Olivia a nastygram from Kash Patel, who's really mad that she would say such a terrible thing. Now, in the meantime, Kash Patel was featured on Russian state television.
Yeah.
In a conversation between Vladimir Soloviev.
Soloviev, yep.
oh my God, RT Chief, I'm blanking on her name because
Something with an
Maria.
M. No.
Listening.
Not Magdalena, not Margarita Simonian.
Thank
Margarita
you.
Simonian. Yeah.
Margarita Maria, something like that. Margarita Simonian, we're having a goddamn party about Kash Patel.
Yeah.
Soloviev is like, he's a beaut. At
Yeah.
least that was the translation. He's a beaut.
Yeah.
He's very, very good. They will dismantle America brick by brick.
Yeah.
And then they showed Kash Patel, Kash Pachud on a podcast, Eric Prince's friend, by the way, on a podcast talking about, the Hoover Building is going to be a museum. I'm going to send all the FBI agents to go fight crimes. And he is going to then weaponize the entire force to go after Donald Trump's goddamn enemies. The Russians played this clip, right? After that, they just went on and on about how amazing Kash Patel is. And by the way, if you aren't aware, and I'll just close here, Kash Pachud also filed suit against yours truly. One of the charges, there's two charges that I want to tell you. In particular, one, he was mad that I called him a chud, and literally has a whole footnote with links and everything to find out what chud means. Because 90% of the people in the world have no fucking idea what it means. It just sounds funny, right? So he put the definition in there because he was so upset by it, he had to look it up.
Yeah.
Also, the second thing that I find hysterical is that I called him a Kremlin asset.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the Kremlin, and that's what Russian state TV is, it's the Kremlin, it is literally the words of the Kremlin, is using you on their program and praising you for how you are going to dismantle America, which is the number one goal of the Kremlin.
Yeah.
I think Kremlin asset is actually an extremely mild way to put that. So,
well done.
Excellent. You were waiting for the right moment and you nailed it. And I appreciate you, brother.
Speaking of,
you win. We're gonna land. We're gonna just fucking land there. Kash Patel, fuck you. You're a chud and a Kremlin asset. Leave Olivia alone, for God's sake.
Speaking of brave people, Jim has a pair of brave lawyers in Florida, and I want to thank everybody who is helping us with whatever you can do, donations to help his GoFundMe in order to fight back against this lawfare on behalf of press freedom. I am so grateful. We sent out a round of, we passed the hat again today, and he's much closer to his goal. We're almost entirely funded, at 90% of funding almost. So thank you, everybody. It means so much. $10 and $15 donation to this show as well, you guys. Thank you for everybody who drops a few bucks in, because we are, we've been telling you the real story about what's happening in America for 4 years. And Joe Biden, if you're listening, declare the information war. We gave you the speech. We handed it to you. We told you how to do it. If we declare that we are a target nation of information warfare, there's a whole bunch of things we could do. And we could start by stripping citizenship of foreign enemies trying to overthrow the US government and deporting them and seizing their properties like we would with any other oligarch who is a threat to our nation. America matters. It really does. We are an imperfect union. We are still a union. And I'd like to believe that we can have a future democracy as opposed to what Jim has been warning about, a fascist hellscape. And with that clip, with that statement, let's go to another clip by Marcy.
Are we on 5 now? I lost count. Here's 5.
Or
Should be.
Why do people learn history and not from history?
Well, I would say there are two things there. There's a not learning, and then there's not taking action. Because one could conceivably learn and then be too passive to take action. But no, this is something historians bang their heads against the wall about all the time. I mean, history never tells you what will happen. History tells you what can happen. You know, in that sense, it kind of fuels one's neuroses because you have a sense of the possibilities. They're generally much more expansive than people believe them to be because we have a natural human tendency to normalize the abnormal. You know, we have a natural human tendency to keep going as if everything is okay until it's not. You know, and what we do learn from history is that people will keep going through their daily routine as if everything were okay, basically until they're in the gas chambers.
Right.
Like much longer than you would ever think. There's this beautiful poem by Czesław Miłosz, or he described, it's called in English, a song about the end of the world. And he writes about how, you know, on the days the world is ending, the dolphins will still be swimming and people will still be walking down the street. And people who were waiting for fire and brimstone and thunder are going to be disappointed because there will be
Fuck, man. So go to the third clip. That it's a 3-minute long clip. I want to see that one.
what are your thoughts about the parallels between the repression that Ukraine was under and the repression that's being promised to us, right? That's already being told to us by the selections of the cabinet members, the promises of retribution, all of those things. I don't mean to put you on the spot. I know that's not exactly what the book is about, but I was curious about your reflections on you know, Ukraine then and the U.S. now and in the near future.
Yeah.
I'm completely terrified. Maybe I feel like in some ways the past 8 years could be subtitled "Vindication of the Neurotic Catastrophist." Like,
Thank you.
I consider myself a neurotic catastrophist.
You win. Okay, thank you so much for that.
No, there's
Hey,
this...
we should start a club.
Neurotic Catastrophist Night. I love it. So
I did not really want to be vindicated in this. There's
Yeah.
an aphorism in Polish, which in translation is, I found myself at the very bottom, but then I heard knocking from below. I feel like I've noticed that the Russians abbreviate this expression to just knocking from below, and everyone understands what you mean. And I feel like that's been coming up again and again. You think it couldn't get any worse, and then it turns out that I would go back to 2016, or really even 2015. And again, like I'm a hardcore neurotic. You know, I come from an American Jewish family. Like, guilt is omnipresent. We're always on the edge of disaster. That's my basic character trait. But I already had this feeling of terror from the time of the first Republican primary debates. And I remember this because I was actually in Kiev, and this is how these stories come together for me. I was in Kiev, and it was fall of 2015, and it must have been after the first or the second Republican primary debate when Trump had just appeared on the scene. I hadn't been aware of his presence before, and I don't think anyone was then taking seriously the possibility that he would actually take power. But I had this terror, like this feeling of terror, and I was doing an interview with a Ukrainian journalist before this panel discussion we had. And I remember her asking me in Russian, the way that she phrased the question was, who in America at this moment would you not shake hands with? Would you not give your hand to? And I
Donald Trump.
And you know why she said that? Because she had been listening to his anti-vax rhetoric, and she knew that somebody like that, seeding that type of rhetoric, that type of anti-science bullshittery would result in kids dying.
Those who can make you believe absurdities are those who can make you commit atrocities. Voltaire. I just also a quote that also is I think very important and apt for these days is, you may not be interested in war, but war is interested in you. That was Leon Trotsky, famous communist to,
Yeah. I'm so grateful.
Run the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm very, very grateful that she gave words to our club, the Vindication of the Neurotic Catastrophist, because like, as we go about our daily lives and, people want to be experiencing the joy of the holiday season. I totally get that. I want to experience the joy of the holiday season. We're still going to have to find a way to have happy lives during this. That is our duty as, I think, human beings. And read her Ukrainian Night book so you can get a clue on how people do that and the deep, searching that they do in order to do that. But the fact is that this is not the time to be on mute. This is not the time. We can't afford it. We have too few days, and we've been saying this for years now. Before every election, midterms, whatever, this is what RadPod does. We tell you what to be concerned about. And
can I one thing that I wrote about recently is fear.
yes,
because look, if we're all afraid, if you're not, if you don't have fear about what's coming up, you're simply not paying attention.
yeah.
Fear is a necessary and healthy emotion when it warns you and reminds you of things that are dangerous. However, when fear paralyzes you and changes, and this is important, your moral and ethical framework, you really need to examine that, right? When you do things or don't do things out of fear, you need to look at the origin of that fear very closely. Because why is it having that effect on you? Who is it that is behind that, and why would they want you to behave that way?
Yeah.
And unraveling those fears, looking at them very closely, is hard sometimes because it's fucking scary.
Yeah.
But it also shows you the wizard behind the curtain. It makes all that bluster and smoke and bullshit not so goddamn scary.
Yeah.
Now, what I am suggesting is, right now, to Heidi's point, we have 47 days, something like that. Use that time right now to practice not being afraid of people. Practice pushing back in the grocery store if somebody says something horrible. Practice not being afraid of living your values in the real world and online, for that matter.
Right.
And the reason that's important, because it's gonna get fucking harder.
Yeah.
This entire regime is going to be designed to make you amoral, to strip away
That's how it works.
your moral framework that makes you want to help your neighbor.
Right.
Or push back against that Nazi that said that thing in the store, against that nice lady, right? All of those decisions are going to get harder, not easier. So what I'm saying is, in these days that we have remaining, and let's push and push and push on this administration to do something. I'm not saying put on your ass, but one thing that you can do every day is practice knowing your fear is a transient event. It is not real. It doesn't mean it is fake, but it means it will pass through you. Fear is the mind killer. There is a fantastic Frank Herbert quote that I wish I had memorized, but it starts with fear is the mind killer. And that's true.
Yeah.
Let that happen to you. Practice it. Get used to it. You're going to be even more scared coming up, but the more you learn to diffuse it by understanding it, the better you will be prepared for what's coming.
Two things I want to say to that before we give Hi-Fi the final word. One thing that was really moving in the Ukrainian Night was a protester from Maidan who was incarcerated. And he noticed that the people that were the bullies that were working for the Russians, who were kind of this mob that was, pulling people and throwing them in some makeshift jail. He noticed that they looked like they had like pinprick eyes, like they were on drugs, and he just noticed some weird stuff. But one thing that got him through it is he had poetry memorized. We are going to need our poets. We are going to need things that sustain us and feed us. And he was able to recite poetry in prison in his mind in order for him to get through this terrible period. And he lived through it. The other thing I want to say that we can learn from the Ukrainian people is they know Tutushki. They know saboteurs. They know provocateurs. Russia, just like they're doing in Georgia, sent fake protesters, sent fake, quote unquote gay activists to stir up, distress within the community. And they knew it. And they had a mantra where they knew it not to fall prey to provocateurs and saboteurs. And I believe part of the muted response we're seeing compared to 2016 is that the Women's March movement, for example, which was global, was infiltrated, kneecapped, and destroyed because desk jobs in St. Petersburg were pretending to be people from America on Twitter, and they destroyed us. And so what I want to say is, like, we are going to have to figure out how we are going to prevent what is coming, but we're also going to have to be so much smarter about infiltration and saboteurs and provocateurs. And part of that is just knowing your allies now and the people that you trust, because as Jim always says, it will get more difficult.
Get your friends close now. Get your family close now. Repair any relationships that are repairable now. Get any complications that you may have with the government taken care of as before this fucking thing, because they'll use whatever they can. Yeah. So, just get ready. Do not despair. Do not get trapped in your fear. Learn to feel it and allow it to move past you.
Thank you, Jim. High fidelity.
Stop doom scrolling. Get off. Just go out and talk to some people. Send them our videos. Let them know what the fuck's going on. It's about to get really bad. All right, you guys are talking like mid to long term. I'm going to talk short term real quick. It's not too hard to Google the phone number for the White House. It's not too hard to Google the number for the Department of Justice. We have evidence now, thanks to that Senate report. I put the link in chat on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitter, start watching us on YouTube, because fuck Twitter, fuck Elon Musk. But call the president, call the Department of Justice. It is obvious that, foreign adversaries are engaged in warfare upon us, upon our, agents of our government on foreign soil. These are acts of war. Declare the war already. Save us from what is about to come, please, if you can. Anyway, I'm actually going to give the last 2 words to 2 people I like a lot. One is Dr. Marcy Shore, and she talks about crossing over to the other side of fear. And The last one is, look, America, we've we've had psychological warfare waged upon us. It was waged upon us during the Vietnam War when there were massive culture clashes between, straight America and the hippie movement and things like that. Um, we know what paranoia looks like. We know what fear looks like. We've been through this before. Time to rise up. Anyway,
One of the
final
many
words.
things that fascinate me about revolution is that you never really know when you get that mysterious cocktail of elements that will produce a tipping point. You need, my kids ask about this all the time. You need a critical mass of people at the same time with a clarity about values, willing to cross to the other side of fear at the same time.
Something happened in here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I've got to beware. Think it's time we stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. It's time we stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What a field day for the heat. 1,000 people in the street, singing songs, carrying signs, mostly saying, wait for our side. It's time we stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Paranoia strikes deep into your life. It will creep. Starts when you're always afraid. Step out of line, the man comes and takes you away. It's time we stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. You better stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.